and welcome to the Droid and Dragon Cantina, a podcast highlighting independent science fiction and fantasy authors. Our guest this week is R.D. Moreno, the author of Zada 5, The Path of the One. We talked about how he got into writing after years in the telecommunications industry and the art and history of science fiction. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
So, tell us about your this book you got out that apparently has won a few awards.
Oh yeah. So it's Zeta 5, Path of the One. It's a little on the thick side. It's 632 pages on the paperback and 500 and something for the hardback. But it is a quick read. It's an adventure that'll keep you. I don't have a ton of reviews on Amazon. I do have a lot of external reviews, and they all mention that it keeps them engaged and wanting to read it. So it's about Connor Balcazar is a young warrior just starting out. He's got an older brother, Adam, that has been doing this for a while. In this universe, what it is the emperor for this universe does expansions. So he's bringing on different planets throughout as they progress. And his older brother, Adam, has been doing this for a while. And that's kind of how the book starts. They're trying to bring it on this new planet. And his brother, Adam, gets caught behind enemy lines, and Connor gets to test himself trying to go rescue his brother. And that's kind of how the book starts. But the basis for it is how I represent it is Dune meets Game of Thrones meets Stargate. So there's a kind of the three elements, and if you talk to anybody, pretty much anybody can know who Dune is or what Dune is based on the two movies that have just come out. And then there was an earlier one that came out in the 1980s. But Dune is actually what sent me on my writing journey. I'm retired. I was with AT&T for 41 years. And when COVID hit, I was starting to make my exit strategy. And AT&T decided that they're going to push me out a little earlier than I was planning. But it actually worked out. They did me a big favor by doing that.
Sounds like you and me got like the similar. We're on a similar career path. That's about the time I got Turner is right around during the pandemic. I was there for like 8 years, and when AT&T took them over, like they were offering buyouts at the time. So
right,
I kind of got out right as we were kind of like a few months into the pandemic. So
yeah, that's it. We bought our house here in North Carolina in March, making our plan for our exit strategy, and I got pushed out in July, so of 2020. But and the problem is that we bought this house in North Carolina to remodel it, so we ended up living through the remodel because we were pushed out. But it all worked out. It all worked out. But after I finished remodeling the house for my wife, it's like, okay, now what do I want to do? And I always had the desire to write, but just never had the time. Living in IT, I mean, you know as well as anybody, that's not a life for anything external other than work, really.
Yeah, that's it's time consuming to say the least, especially depending on where you are within the company like that. Like especially like the whole TV or telecommunications, that's a business that never sleeps. So
Well, see, I was a director managing other clients, and I was actually managing HP at the time, managing their network. So I had 100 people working for me around the globe. So I'd be on calls 24 hours trying to deal with outages and crap. So yeah, you know how it goes.
I do not envy you. There's a reason I got out of all that. That's
Well, I know.
I kind of found my lane and I stayed in it until I couldn't, and then I was like, okay, enough, because I knew I had worked with enough other people in other departments. So like, yeah, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
That's a lot of headaches and a lot of hours and just a lot of stress for a lot of like, and the thing is like you're always stressing on someone else's behalf, and it's that'll wear on you over time.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I said that. I mean, they did me a favor when they kicked me out. So
So
I,
did you get
I
the
never
writing
looked
bug?
back.
So I'm sorry, like, did you get the writing bug at a young age and you were just kind of harboring this desire to do it, and then finally one day, like, your chance came?
Yeah, actually, I did. So I read the first Dune book probably late late teens, and that really inspired me. And I also Jules Verne and a lot of the others. I read a lot of their work. Um, Edgar Allan Poe affected me a little bit. But yeah, I had the bug, but just never had the time to do anything with it. And then, like I said, after I retired, I had finished remodeling the house, and they had re-released Dune by this time. And I saw it for a couple of times, and it's like, okay, I think I'm at a point now where I want to do something. So that's kind of how it went from there. And I started August of 22 and finished January. So I did it was a little over 165,000 words in 6 months.
Mm. So did you find it easy to sit down and kind of dig into that, or was it more of a struggle than you thought it would be? Because like it's one thing, because a lot of people will start off writing short stories, but if you're just going to dive in and write a
Yeah,
book,
yeah, right.
it's that's kind of
Well,
like that's very much jumping into the deep end of the pool.
yeah, well, and that's kind of the way I am. I'm just going to go for it. But to that point, I sat down and kind of put together a list of the characters I wanted and who they were going to be and how they were going to play within the book. And I had an idea of how I wanted to go. And some of the centerpieces of how I wanted the book. And probably a month into it, I was kind of struggling as to which way I wanted the book to go. So I took like a week off and did yard work and some stuff like that and just let things percolate. And once that happened, when I came back, it took off from there. I was
It's
able to sit down and
it sounds very much like you're kind of more of a plotter than a pantser when you hear the two kind of major archetypes of writers.
well, so the way I phrase it is I'm a plotter until I start writing. So I'll sit down and then when the characters actually tell me how they're going to go. It's not pretty much this is what I want the character to do, and this is exactly how I want them to do it. It's when I start writing and I start developing what they're doing and what they're getting into, then the characters kind of take off on their own direction.
Well, I've had like another writer, a writer I know that like came up with like a third category, which is kind of one in between. She called it like a plantser or a plantster. Basically, like
Yeah, I've heard that.
you're planting very specific seeds and then just kind of watching how they grow.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it exactly. I mean, that's kind of how it went for me.
So when you're so like if you're using Dune as kind of like your model for like what a good sci-fi story should be, and I mean Dune is the granddaddy of them all. Like for I always tell anybody like George Lucas took half of his stuff from Star Wars from Dune, and
Yeah, yeah,
just like it's and of course Dune is an influence like every. It's hard to find something that doesn't have some like Dune has its fingerprints on like a lot of stuff out there because it was one of the
right.
first big ones. And it's so extensive. Like, was that when you're trying to like mock up with something like that? Are you sitting there like how much? Because like the big thing of that is just the world building of it and
Yeah.
how good Frank Herbert is at kind of developing all these different cultures and different things. And I mean, it's to the point like where even if you haven't read the books, you just watch the movies. It's very, very evident how, like
How he expands it on.
yeah,
Yeah.
like like the stuff that's very, very well thought out. Like how deep are you kind of going into that stuff? Obviously, you got to give your characters room to play, but like I feel like when you're doing science fiction or fantasy, like all the really good books are ones that seem like like you can kind of tell that the author spent a lot of time kind of working out, where the
Well, okay,
stuff
so
is.
yeah, so I'll give you the example. So Zeta 5 is actually it's a large mining planet, and in my book, they mine Xando crystals, And Zando crystals are refined for interstellar space. That's the fuel for interstellar space. So kind of like Star Trek, where they have the dilithium crystals. So it's like, okay, I could do something like that. I'm not going to do spice like Dune, like they had in Dune, where they use that to fold space. I went a different way with that, but so I use Zando crystals in there. And within Zeta 5, what happens is Zeta 5 is surrounded by asteroids. It's got a huge asteroid field around it, and you can't get into the planet except for every 3 months. There's three moons in it, and they align and they pull an opening within the planet so you can fly in. You've got a day and a half to fly in there, do what you have to do, and then get out. If you don't get out within the day and a half, then you're stuck there for 3 months. So that's the premise for what Zeta 5 is.
Yeah, it's always about the fuel, isn't it? It's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, whether it's the spice must flow or the crystals have to get mined. Someone's got it's always about the fuel.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
even in
And
our
so
world, it's always about the it's like whether it's gas or crystal, like it's always going to be something like you got to keep the wheels of commerce turning.
right. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. You have to. So you have to figure it out one way or another.
So when you're like doing your characters, I know, like say, like how much of those are you kind of like how much of that are you structuring beforehand, and how much of it is like coming to you as you write? And with
So for the characters themselves, for Connor and his brother Adam, I pretty much had them laid out how I wanted them to go. But there's two other ones. The Emperor has two daughters, Christina and Emily, and how they play into the book and how they link up with Adam and Connor kind of plays on its own. And I can't go too deep into that because that's giving a lot of the plot away. The one thing that I can say is like with Dune, where they've got the the worms, the sandworms. It's like, okay, I've got to have some kind of creature in there. So what am I going to do? So I actually came up with a dragon in there that actually works into the book. That's discovered on Zeta 5 early on when you're reading in the book. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but the how
yeah,
that plays in and how that works out is something completely different once you read it.
yeah. So like you've mentioned, so like Frank Herbert was a big thing, and
Yeah,
I've noticed in your previous some of your previous interviews, you're also a bit of a Star Wars fan. So how much of that
yeah.
is kind of
So yeah, so Star Wars was a big thing for me. I remember being I lived in the Bay Area, so Santa Clara, and they had the Century theaters where they had the big curved screens. This was kind of state of the art back then. And when I saw the previews for the first Star Wars movie, it's like, man, I got to be one of the first ones to see that. And yeah, so that played a big part. Actually, the very first one for me was when I was a kid was Forbidden Planet.
oh, okay.
When I saw Forbidden Planet, it's like, okay, sci-fi is it. I've got to gobble up anything that's sci-fi after I saw that movie.
Yeah, that speaking of like that, that's another one. Like that's like you're talking like classic early sci-fi.
Exactly. Yep.
I mean that
And then you do Jason of the Argonauts, and that brings in the fantasy element of it. So
yeah, like I don't know if you've seen it. There's someone who recently kind of took the Jason and the Argonauts thing, and they sped up the frame rate on all the like animation, and we're now it's like they didn't have the technology back then, but now if you do it
right.
and you kind of run it through this kind of modern, I don't know what the process is, but basically it's like it finds strangely enough, it smooths it out to where it looks like it could have been done like yesterday, and it's the difference is amazing. And just
Oh, really? No, I haven't seen it. I'll have to see that. But
uh,
yeah, because the skeletons were a little kludgy in that scene in the original version of it. but for like you said, for the time of it, I mean, that was amazing film
Yeah,
work.
all that old stuff with like Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans was another one that the guy did when you
Yeah,
kind of like stuff that nowadays we look at it and go, oh man, that's so primitive. But at the time that was like,
yeah,
cutting edge
yeah. It was
stuff.
beyond amazing. Yep.
But yeah, it's like so what are like so what like I guess like what more like so is it like the classic like all the classic like the Greek mythology. It's like that.
Hmm.
How much is that stuff coming in there, or like how much are you trying
Yeah.
to like?
So,
It's interesting to see when
so
you
there.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's, no, it's totally fine. So there's a prophecy in the book with Connor. Connor has the ability to have visions and see things, but he's still trying to work it out in the book. And so that's when he gets to Zeta 5, that's he sees things on there that he's getting flashes of stuff, and it's telling him that he's going to need different elements of this to help them as they go forward. But he hasn't been able to quite work out why he needs this stuff. So that's kind of how it plays out in there.
Yeah, that's another classic thing like the visions obviously in Dune because you got Paul trying to
Yep.
it's like you're kind of getting pieces of the puzzle but he's always and it's not until he does the big thing at the end. I don't know if you haven't I should not feel bad about giving spoilers to Dune. The book's like over 50 years old.
Right.
For those few people who haven't already seen the movie, I'd be like, yeah, that's just like you feel like the whole thing with the visions kind of allows you to play with like people's expectations because you can kind of like sprinkle out little tidbits of something and then you can say, okay, you think I'm going this way, but then do you kind of like flip it on them?
Yeah. So about halfway through the book, yeah, you'll get hit in the face with a few things, and it'll definitely goes left on you. And so the other part of it is early on in the book, the emperor discovers that his brother is plotting stuff, and in chapter 2, there's a lab explosion that exposes some stuff with the emperor's brother Lorenzo. And so the emperor goes there to find out what's going on because he's not getting the full story from his brother. And some people have died in the lab explosion. And when they get there, they find that part of the lab that they can see, it's phasing in and out, but they can see another world as they're standing there looking. And it's like, oh, what the hell is this? What's going on here? This isn't anything like what my brother's telling me here. And so that kind of starts the adventure as to what has he been up to. And that's where they determine that what they were looking at was actually Zeta 5. And that's what sends Connor and one of his mentors, Eric, to Zeta 5 to figure out what's going on.
So, I say like it's interesting you made your main characters all part of the Empire because that's always like kind
Yeah.
of a big thing. It's always like, the big bad empire. So like, but it's like, is this like the benevolent empire or are you, or like
Yes,
we
this
feel
is
like at the front, we
yeah.
think it's benevolent and then, we learn.
No. Yeah, it's benevolent, and it's just a question of what is his brother up to, and is his brother trying to take over, and so that's kind of how it goes from there. And they're trying to determine because, like you said, the emperor's brother Lorenzo isn't telling him anything, so the emperor has to find out what's going on his own. And since Lorenzo doesn't really know who Adam and Connor are because he hadn't seen them since they were young kids, he's using them as his spies to try and dig into what's happening.
And so like you said, you're planning on doing like a series of these books, right? And you said you
Right.
had like,
Yeah. So I've completed 3 others, and I'm in chapter 8 of book 5.
mm. So when are you planning to release those?
Well, as an independent author, the process for actually doing a decent book is not cheap. So I'm trying to get the word out there on this one, and once I can get the word spread on this one and start getting a real following for it, then I'm happy to start printing or getting the other ones published.
So were you always looking to go the indie route, or did you ever consider trying to send it out to publishers, or was it always just like you?
I Yeah, so I actually went the traditional publisher route, and probably 6, 8 months of attempting. I've got either no replies at all or some very nice, this isn't really what we do type stuff. And then at that point, I found a group called Paper Ravens Books, and they help with all the editing. I went through 3 rounds of editing. They helped me get a cover and get the book formatted and put up on Amazon, and it's actually on Ingram Sparks as well. So you can get it from Barnes and Noble now if you want to go order it from one of them.
Cool. So yeah, like get diving into that a little more. So
Yep.
I think one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast because it's becoming more like the whole indie author thing is become
Mhm.
a lot more prevalent, a little more acceptable. Because there was, I know
Right.
back say like maybe like God, maybe 15, like even like maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't as, there was kind of almost like almost a stigma
A
around it where I feel
stigma.
like it's
Yep. Yep.
nowadays it seems like there's so many I've seen it's like in the you know last so many years it's like there's been like I've noticed like at some point there was a shift where people were like, well, why should I go and spend years trying to hit up all these big publishers when I can just put the thing out?
Yep.
I mean, like let's say yeah, and like have like generally. So were you like trying to like get while you were getting into it, or you having to kind of like seek out a lot of advice? Like, okay, how do I do, like, because I mean, it's a whole process.
Yeah, it's a whole process. And the other problem too is, I'll be very upfront. Grammar was never my thing. And I knew when I had the book finished that it was going to need a lot of work. And I actually had one group come to me and they were basically telling me, oh, we can do some tweaks here, we can do some tweaks there, and then we could throw it out. And I'm going, no, no, not at all. That's not what I want. That's not the idea that I want. I need somebody to actually look at it and do full editing here because I knew what my grammar capabilities were at the time. I've learned a lot since I published my first book, and I would say the same thing. And if I had let that company do that, I wouldn't get the reviews that I get. I wouldn't have received the awards that I received. It would have been basically thrown in the trash.
So do you have like a
And
dedicated group of like readers who kind of look over your stuff?
I do. Some of them I used to work with, some of them I went to school with, some of them are just some friends that I know. It's not a large group of those. But the other thing too that I'm finding is about 4 months ago, I I figured I would jump into the TikTok pool and try. And there is a huge community out there for indie authors, and the support for them is crazy. And so I'm finding that I could use them for doing beta reading if I want, or if I get ready to release the book, that I can get more um, ARC readers out there to read the book and provide reviews that way. Where I didn't have that when I first launched it. And well, and that's the other thing. So today is April 17th. This is actually the official year since I published my book.
Hmm. So how's it been like start doing the indie thing? How like as far as like finding the community out there, how's that journey been? Getting more
Uh,
into it's
it
like
was
book talk. I only learned of that recently, but it's apparently a whole thing.
It is. It is a whole thing, and I was surprised at the support that's out there for it. And I did the Facebook route. I've probably got probably 1,200 followers on Facebook with my author page, and that's good. But in TikTok, within 3 months, I've grown it to a little over 3,000 followers,
Yeah.
and probably 90% of them are book talkers or authors or other independent authors as well.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when I found out about it, just how big it is. Like you get like people out there
Yep.
with thousands of followers, like people like
Oh yeah.
someone I've never heard of, and apparently like they like whoa, this is definitely something that's just that's out there, just like picking up. And I've actually found out. someone, I mentioned him a few times in different interviews. I don't want to get the person's name wrong, but someone who was like an indie author recently got like a big deal to do like either I forget whether it's movies or TV.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and it's like it's and the word is now I heard from either some trade magazine or somewhere that there's a thing that like studios or like some of these big media companies are out there looking for stuff like that. And then like because like they're always needing more, there's always going to like they're always trying to look for like the next thing because like as soon as one
Yep.
series plays out, they got to have the next one in the queue. So like they're just out there looking for this kind of stuff to snap. And I
Right.
think like with that person breaking in, I would not be at all shocked, especially if you're someone who can like do a series that like
Right.
if it's worth anything at all, because like it just seems like those studios are always going to be on the prowl for the next thing that they can. Because nowadays you can't just do a one-off of anything. Everything has to be like a trilogy or a series or yeah.
Right. 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 Something that'll keep it going. Exactly. Well, and that's the other thing too is, so I did a YouTube interview with a group called Interfleet Broadcasting, and they're based on sci-fi, and Battlestar Galactica is kind of where they go. And last week they were talking about Project Hail Mary. That movie is going to be coming out sometime in 2026. And I've actually got reviews from a few people that said that they had read Project Hail Mary and they were concerned that they were going to read my book and not be as happy with it. But they actually commented that they actually liked my book better than Project Hail Mary, which made me feel real good. So I'm kind of hoping, well, Project Hail Mary goes out there, and with reviews that I had, maybe somebody will take a look at mine.
Well, you never know what's going to catch on there.
Right,
I mean,
right.
and there's always stuff popping up like and it's weird too because like I'm always trying to look out, kind of see like what's out there and what's getting
Yep,
you hear it. And the thing is too, like, and then like things can get like trapped in what they call like development hell, or
right,
like some one thing you because like there's this one series I've been hearing about for a while that's gotten pretty popular, and I don't know where they're at with it, but it's kind of like you'll hear about it and then it just kind of goes away for a while, and then there'll be something else that just comes up out of the blue. Like I've never heard of this
right.
before in my life, and then suddenly now it's got like a
Yep,
series on Netflix. It's like so, I mean, you never know where the stuff is
yep.
coming from, and
No, that's
I guess
exactly right.
that's what makes it all interesting to follow. So
Well, that's a group that I talk about with Interfleet Broadcasting because they'll get producers and people that create some of the 3D dimensioning and stuff for it, and they'll talk about some of the stuff that they've been involved in that's been shelved because somebody just didn't like the way that it was going. So that's it exactly.
yeah, and then you also hear about stuff like where like a studio will change hands and then they won't touch something just because the previous guy had it. So like it's
Right.
yeah, yeah, just behind the scenes shenanigans, you know, which hopefully, if hopefully that will not touch you if any producer starts looking at your stuff. We don't want that
Yeah.
to happen. So
No, no, we don't.
so yeah, man, like tell the people where they can find you online if they want to learn about your book or follow you on TikTok or wherever.
Yeah, so on TikTok, I go under RD Marino Author, and I'm also on Instagram under RD Marino Author. And then my you can find my book, Zeta 5 Path of the One, on Amazon. Or like I said, I've got it with Ingram Sparks, so you can go to Barnes and Noble. Actually, you can go to Walmart, Target, any of them, and you can actually order the book from there as well.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thanks for coming out, man. We'll be on the lookout for your stuff out there.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
That will be all for this episode. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. To learn more about this show or other podcasts, visit carcuttamedia.com/podcasts or follow us on social media at Carcutta Media. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for use of brief quotations in a review. Copyright 2025 by Calcutta Media. All rights reserved.